with the actual last teaching.
So good evening, everyone. Again, thank you for making the time effort to come here. So as usual, I would like to start with a short mindful breathing exercise, watching the breath mindfully to quiet our mind, to bring our mind in moment in present. Okay. Then we can try to have good intentions, motivation for being here. We can think, for example, by us coming here together with a good intention, giving our precious time to listen and to reflect and contemplate on what we have been discussing. May all of this become cause and condition to inspire us to war with our mind, so that we can reduce and overcome those harmful negative thoughts, feelings, emotions. And cultivate and improve and increase those beneficial, helpful, positive state of minds, thoughts, feelings. And may be cause and condition to actualize all the spiritual experience or realizations of the whole path. And to achieve our highest potential, fully awakened state. So we can fulfill the highest purpose of all sentient beings, as well as oneself, one's own highest purpose. And may we always be beneficial and helpful to our body, speech, and mind, directly, indirectly, towards others and oneself. And may we never have any negative, harmful thoughts or engage in any kind of harmful body, speech, and mind. Okay.
For our opening prayers, we'll start on page 73 with the praise to Shakyamuni Buddha, which we'll do 3 times in English. To the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the four destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Siddhartha, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to reaching, teachers of God and human beings, to you, the complete and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings and go for refuge. To the founder,
The endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the four destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened beings, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of the gods and human beings, to you, the complete and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge.
To the founder,
The endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the four destroyer, the completely fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teachers of gods and human beings, to you, the complete and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge.
On page 97, we will do the short mandala offering once in Tibet. Saji po ki jun
shin me to tam re ra lim shin yin ge gen ba di san ge shin du mi ge u wa ri
We'll do the refuge and bodhicitta before the teaching, once in English, twice in Tibetan. I go for refuge and glory and light to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye Chodam Sogi Chodam Na Chanchu Bhadur Dani Kyapsuchi Agi Shasha Yebe Sonam Di Rola Sangye Vyuharsho Sangye Chodam Sogi Chodam Na Chanchu Bhadur Dani Kyapsuchi Agi Shasha Yebe Sonam Di
So we have just started some weeks ago on this particular text. The title of the text as the song of the spiritual experiences or realizations by one of the great Tibetan master, Lam Tsongkhapa. And we discuss about relying spiritual masters correctly through the thoughts and actions, and having rely correctly, then encouraging, inspiring one to make one's life meaningful by understanding the preciousness and the value of this human life. And the way to make our life meaningful is to practice the Dharma. And practice the Dharma, as I've mentioned many times, means, working with our mind, working with our mind to reduce those negative, harmful, negative, destructive emotions, and trying to improve those positive emotions. And not only we need to make our life meaningful by practicing the Dharma, but we need to practice the Dharma as soon as possible without postponing it, because there come a time when our life come to the end, and we never know when that day is. Nobody can guarantee how long we can live, how much we live. So since we do not know how many years or months or weeks that we have, so whatever we have at the moment is present at the moment, and so try to practice the Dharma right now without postponing. Because if we don't practice the Dharma, and if we live our life with a lot of negativities, engage in so much harmful, negative actions, behavior, conduct, thoughts, then after the time of the death, we'll take a rebirth, and if our negative karma is strong, most likely in one of those lower rebirth. And if we are born in lower rebirth, then the opportunity to practice that Dharma become very limited. The opportunity to practice the Dharma, the opportunity to improve our spiritual path and progress on the spiritual path become very difficult and extremely difficult. And therefore, we have to create the cause and conditions to stop such rebirth. We have to create the cause and condition to stop such rebirth, so that we can continue to have better rebirth, so that we have the better conditions to practice the Dharma and to improve life after life. And therefore, the way to create the cause and conditions to close the door to the lower rebirth is, by going into the refuge, by going to refuge to the Buddha Sangha. So I think that was what we have reached last time in terms of the verse. I think, I think in the verse number 15, that is where there is no certainty that after death we may not be born in the lower realms. Protection from such terror lies in the three jewels alone. And so we must make firm practice going for refuge and ensure that its precepts are never undermined. So that is where we are. So when you talk about refuge, in many of the teachings, they describe the three kinds of refuge. The refuge of small scope, refuge of middle scope, refuge of high scope. The refuge of small scope is the fear of being born in lower realms, driven by that kind of fear, not wanting to be born in such lower realm, and having the trust in the three jewels to do that, to protect that. That is the refuge of small scope. Refuge of middle scope is, the fear of being born in samsara. Even you are not born in lower realm, even you are born in a high rebirth, but if you are in samsara, still you are not free from the sufferings. Still there is a lot of problems. Still there is a lot of samsara. In samsara, there is a lot of problems, a lot of sufferings, pain. And so therefore, you don't want to take any rebirth in any samsara, whether it's a low rebirth or high rebirth. And so, driven by that fear or the wish to free from that samsara, and having the trust in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha to help us to do that. That is the refuge of the middle scope. And the refuge of the high scope is the motivation, is compassion. That, the fear of any sentient beings being in samsara is not just yourself, but any sentient beings, as long as they are samsara, they continue to experience suffering and problems. And so, you don't want any sentient beings to experience sufferings and the pain. And so you feel compassion for them, feeling their suffering, pain as your own suffering and pain, and you don't want them to have pain and suffering and in samsara, so that in order to free all sentient beings from the samsara and cause of samsara, so that compassion motivations, and having the trust in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha to help us to do that. That is the Mahayana refuge. That is the refuge of high scope. So you take refuge not only just for yourself, but for all sentient beings. So, so when we talk about refuge, as Matthew said, for those who wish liberations, for those who wish liberation or nirvana, the refuge is Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. Okay. And in our life, I think we take a lot of refuge. Refuge in so many things, When we are sick, we take refuge to the doctors, to the medicines, and other things. Sometimes when we have problem in our life, some people take refuge in substance, whether it's drinking or whether it's other source of other substance, drugs and so forth, or sometimes food, in order to relieve of whatever suffering, pain that they might be experiencing, and they don't have other ways, they don't know, or they don't have other ways to how to deal with that pain and suffering. And the only way to deal with them, to release or to reduce that pain and suffering, or to be distracted that pain and suffering, then they rely on different kinds of substances, and they take refuge in that, So in our life, we take in many different objects in refuge, But for someone who really sincerely wish for total liberation, nirvana, total liberation from all the suffering, cause of suffering, the samsara, then the true refuge for those is the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. That is the true refuge for those who are inspiring for the liberations. We don't go refuge to the Buddha Dharma Sangha because I have health issues. We don't go refuge to Buddha Dharma Sangha because I have relationship problems. We don't go refuge to Buddha Dharma Sangha because I have some financial issues. You know, the reason to go refuge to Buddha Dharma Sangha is because we wish to have liberations, and they are the one who can show us the path to do that. For that purpose, for liberation, that's why we go for refuge to Buddha Dharma Sangha. You know, whether it's your individual liberation or you know, total enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. You know, those who desire or those who wish, those who aspire to achieve that liberation, then you go to refuge Buddha Dhamma Sangha, and they are the perfect refuge for that. They are the perfect refuge for that. And the way we try to understand is we try to see ourselves as a sick patients. And we are sick with a lot of delusions. Of course, if someone said you are delusional, we will be upset. It will be hard for us to accept that we are delusional. You know, we will be really very upset. But the fact and reality is we are delusional. You know, we have a lot of delusions. We have anger, we have jealousy, we have very strong desire or attachments. You know, we have strong ego, you know, egoistic mind, you know, we have strong ignorance. So we are full of those delusions, you know. And so from that point of view, we have to understand that I have this problem. I have this illness of those delusions that make my life miserable. The reason why our life becomes miserable is not the external conditions. More than the external condition is the internal conditions. You know, if someone does not have all these delusions, someone who is free from all delusions, even in the same this environment and external condition, they can still be absolutely peaceful, calm, and not miserable. The external condition can be exactly same, but because they don't have that anymore of internal delusional conditions, then these conditions can be just perfect conditions that doesn't make them life miserable. On the other hand, you know, if we have the delusion, then we become miserable whenever there's a little change of condition here and there, external changes. Too cold, we become miserable. If too hot, we become miserable. Too much rain, we become complain. Not enough rain, we complain. You know, so too many friends, we complain. Not enough friends, complain. Oh, I feel lonely, I don't have enough friends. Too much friends, or I'm too busy, I'm overwhelmed, you know. So that is, our life becomes much more miserable when we have those delusions, you know. And so from that point, we are having that, as Maitreya said, mentioned, you know, that we are a sick persons, you know, necessarily not physically sick, but mentally because of those delusions. So we have to recognize, acknowledge, and accept that we have some problem and we need to fix that. You know. And who can help us to fix that? Who can help us to fix that problem is the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. By seeing the Buddha as the doctor, this particular illness, the delusional illness. A Buddha who have overcome those delusions himself through his experience, and will overcome them through the path and that. And with the direct experience, he knows exactly how to do that. And so he's the doctor who is someone who can diagnose that illness and who can prescribe exact cure, medicinal cure for that illness. By seeing the Buddha as someone like the doctor who is able to diagnose correctly this particular illness. Not only correctly diagnose the illness, but who can prescribe exact cure, exact medicine. So just as we take refuge to the doctors when we have physical illness, same way, this mental illness, then we go refuge to the Buddha, by seeing like the doctor. And then the medicine, the Dharma as the actual medicine, actual cure, the actual refuge. The actual refuge is the Dharma. So if we're sick physically, we go and see the doctor and they diagnose and prescribe whatever medicine, whatever cure, treatment. In order to cure, you have to take the medicine that has been described or prescribed, the medicine or cure. If you don't take that medicine, then you will not be cured, even you have the best doctor. Do you get it? We might find the best doctor who is able to diagnose exactly what problem you have, exactly what treatment you need to take medicine to cure. If you don't follow the doctor's advice, if you don't take that medicine cure, you cannot be cured of that illness. And we cannot blame the doctor. Do you get it? We cannot blame the doctor for not being cured because we haven't followed the advice by taking the cure medicine. Same way, the way to cure this illness of those delusions is taking the medicine of the Dharma, actualizing the Dharma within our mind. Actualizing the Dharma within our mind. Loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, wisdom, all of those Dharma, especially the wisdom. Actualizing the Dharma within ourselves. That is like taking the medicine. Once we have actualized the Dharma within ourselves, then that is the actual refuge. That is the actual cure. And that is how we can cure. That is how we can protect. And then seeing the Sangha as like the assistants for the doctors. They have the nurse or assistant that help us to, encourage us, help us to take the medicine, whatever at the right time, right dose, when we forget, reminding us, when to take, what to take, how much to take, like that. And Sangha is those, in terms of individual Arya Sangha, those who have actualized the wisdom within themselves, Dharma within themselves, who have direct realizations of the emptiness, those Arya Sangha individuals, so they can support us with their experience, because they have actualized the Dharma within themselves. They can share, they can help. In terms of community, even though someone has not Arya beings, because they have not actualized that wisdom, realizing emptiness directly, but still as a community, they can support each other, and community Sangha become very important, especially for us when we are in beginning stages of our path, because sometimes we get discouraged, sometimes maybe we get confused ourselves, sometimes we are unable to, even we have been listening, even we have been meditating, sometimes we are not sure about certain practice, about certain meditation, certain that. And so then discussing with the Sangha members, sharing with Sangha members. In that way, sharing each other's experiences, sharing each other's practices can be helpful, beneficial to each other's. At the monastery, when we study our teachers, and they always used to say, the best teachers are your classmates, the Sangha members. From our teachers, we get, 2 hours of class each day, maybe. Sometimes maybe 3 times a week, sometimes 4 times a week, sometimes 5 times a week. But with our classmates, we come together, discuss, debate every day, morning, evening. We discuss. And the most we learn so much from those discussions, from those discussions. You have heard from your teachers. You have done your self-study. You read many commentaries. You yourself read many commentaries. You reflect, contemplate on those different commentaries. And sometimes you have different teaching from different teachers. And then, each of us bring into the class and share their individual thoughts or what they think or what they believe, the meaning of that statement or meaning of that particular stanzas, and it's pouring of different ideas. And then after discussions, then individually we have to make our own conclusions, which one makes more sense, I can go to my class when we have discussions with certain assumptions, or thinking this is what I think, or this is what I believe, meaning of these statements, or meaning of that stanzas, or so forth. And then in class, another classmate will come with a reasoning and logic. They can kind of prove I was wrong, why I'm wrong in believing that. And if I'm being, through their reasoning and logics, if they prove that, I have to give up my assumption, my belief. And that's how you help and support each other through all these discussions to have a better and more profound understanding, and to be and it is also really good way. It's kind of meditations, that kind of analysis, you have to be your mind open for any possibility. Something that I believe this is what it means for 20 years, someone can come and prove me wrong. That was wrong by their reasoning logic. If they have a really good reasoning logic that proved me that I was wrong, I have to let it go. I can't hold on that because I believe. I don't have enough ground, reasoning logic to hold on that, because they have proven kind of with a better reasoning logic why this my belief does not have ground. And so anyway, that is part of studies. And so that is what our teacher used to say, you learn more from your classmate, the Sangha community, and that is what really truly is, and even now, sometimes when I have some doubt, when I'm unclear about certain scriptures or certain statements, or the first one I discuss is with my classmates or friends. I will send them, I'm having a problem with not being able to figure out exactly what do you think, and we have back and forth. They will say this, and then I raise questions if I don't think that is, and back and forth. Still classmates, Sangha members. So my immediate kind of reaching out is not my teachers, is mostly my classmates when I'm having and of course sometimes if I have the opportunity to do to my teachers, of course I will also ask that, if I still have some difficulty of that. But the first things that I will try to do is through the Sangha members, sharing and trying to get their point of views and what they think. And so that's how the Sangha can be very helpful. And also same, when you do a retreat meditations, practice, even when you're studying, sometimes you feel kind of tired and lazy, maybe I will just skip today, these sessions. But when you see other Sangha members really practicing, then again, you think, how, when they are practicing, how can I be so lazy and how can I? So that gives you inspirations. If I'm by myself, probably I will just have skipped that. But when there's Sangha members who are doing together, and when I see them, that gives you a kind of encouragement. And so that is, I found that when I was studying, I find that when you are doing retreat practice, so that is how the Sangha member can support and help each others, and so that is the Sangha member as by seeing like the assistant, the nurse, to help in our practice, in our meditation, in our Dharma path. So that is how we go to refuge. Okay, that is the way we go refuge is by that, having the confidence and trust in the Buddha as the doctor to cure our illness of delusions, and then having the trust and faith in the Dharma itself, and trying to actualize Dharma within ourselves, and having the trust and confidence in the Sangha member to support and help us in our path, in our practice. So that is the refuge, okay? And as it says, so that is how we refuge. So we must make from the practice of going for refuge. So that is a way. Therefore, the practice of refuge, we have to develop a strong practice of refuge. And the refuge is the foundations for the Buddhist practice. All the Buddhist practice come through the refuge. Whether your practice is Buddhist practice or not, it depends whether it is supported by the refuge or not. And then ensure that the precepts are never undermined. So once you are taking the refuge, then there are precepts or advices, 6 kind of advices or precepts, and then general precepts, general advices, so keeping those precepts or the advice commitments is very important. Once we have taken the refuge, ensure that those are not undermined, those are not broken, those are not, being careless of that. And especially the main precept, commitment is not to harm others. Like when we go to refuge to the Buddha, there's two: one to practice, one to abandon. When you go to refuge to the Dharma, there's advice, one that we should practice and one to abandon. Same with the Sangha. For example, going in the refuge to the Buddha, then we don't treat Buddha's image because they represent the Buddha. Whatever that image, it can be, statues, paintings, whatever that represent the Buddhas. We should, we shouldn't treat them like ordinary material things, material ordinary objects. We should abandon treating them, regarding them as just like ordinary material things. That's what we abandon. In terms of practicing, we should practice to see every image that represents the Buddha by seeing them as actual Buddha. We train our mind to see them as the actual Buddha. And in terms of the Dharma, what we abandon is any act through body, speech that harms others. We abandon harming others. That's what, when we refuge to the Dharma, what we abandon is hurting, harming others. And by what we practice is any scriptures, any books, even one pages that describe Dharma, even one sentence, one word, we try to treat them respectfully as is the actual full Dharma itself. And same with the Sangha, what we abandon is trying to physically distance ourselves from something that can discourage us from losing our path, obstacles. And what we try to do is anything that represents the Sangha, we try to respect them as is the actual Sangha itself. So those are the kind of the 6 main practice, and there are many others, common advice, commitments. And of all of that, the main is to abandon intentionally hurting and harming others. That is the thing. That is the very core of all these precepts. Of course, there are many different commitment precepts, but the core, the essence and the core of that, the precept is to stop or abandon from intentionally harming others. And therefore, in order to stop harming others through body, speech, and mind, then we try to live our life according to the principle of abandoning 10 non-virtuous actions and engaging 10 virtuous actions. Because those 10 non-virtuous actions are something that harms others. Okay? And if we live our life on the principle of that, trying to refrain from engaging in any of 10 non-virtuous actions and instead engage in 10 virtuous actions, then we have created the right cause and condition for better futures, future happiness. Whether you believe, not believe, doesn't matter. You have created the right cause and conditions. And through that, then you are being protected from the lower rebirth. When you practice that, when you live your life according to that, then you close the door to the lower rebirth. and you have open for a better future, better condition to practice the Dharma and a higher rebirth, and so that is what it means to ensure these precepts are never undermined. Okay, so and the next one, it says, this in turn depend on contemplating well on the white and black karma and their effect, and on perfect observance of the ethical norms. I, the yogi, have practiced in this manner. You who aspire for liberation, too should do likewise. And in order to be able to have a strong practice of refraining from 10 non-virtuous actions, engaging in 10 virtuous actions, in order to have those strong practice of that, then we need to have strong faith and belief in karma. The stronger belief, trust, confidence you have in karma, the more stronger practice you have for those practice. Because not only it harm others, it also harm yourself from karmic point of view. When I take someone's life, not only I'm taking someone's life, I'm creating cause and conditions for someone to take my life. I put my life in danger, creating the cause and condition to put my life in danger. So it is not just protecting others, it's protecting others and yourself, everyone. Because sometimes when you hear, is refraining from harming others, it feels like we are trying to protect others, but not ourselves. Do you get it? It's trying to being compassionate, is being nice to others, but it's nothing to do good to ourselves. That's total misunderstanding. Protect others is protect yourself, because you stop creating negative as a consequence of that which you suffer in the future. So you are protecting both. So therefore we need to meditate, contemplate on the the positive, the cause, positive and negative cause and effect, the law of cause and effect of the karma, and of course, karma is one of the very crucial subjects in Buddhism that can be related with many other things, and we can talk about cause and effect, basically, what it means is every actions of ours has consequences. That is what it means. Every actions, either to the body, speech, mind, any of three doors, positive or negative, every of those actions have consequences. Some of them you can experience consequences immediately. Some of them you might experience the consequences much more later, but you will have the consequences. That is a law of cause and effect. That is not a law of cause and effect created by the Buddha. It is the way law of cause and effect. Buddha just explain us how it works. The law of gravity, there is no one who created that. Buddha didn't create that or created. It's the way it is. There's law of gravity, and then some expert scientists explain how that works, and we understand how it works. Similarly, that law of cause and effect is that's generally there's law of cause and effect, and so with Buddha's enlightened mind, he see that, and then he kind of explained to us. But it's not that if you don't believe it, that there is no law of cause and effect. Your action doesn't have consequences. If you believe, then you will have your action with a consequence. Do you get it? Sometimes people have this misunderstanding, If I believe in karma, then there will be that consequence. If I don't believe, then as to that, nothing, you will not experience that effect, So, yes, please.
So, the law of karma, I understand that one. Is purification, is that also a law?
Purification is a practice
Right.
to change that consequences, By engaging certain actions, there was going to be certain consequences.
Right.
Through purification, you change something that you don't have the same consequences. For example, even in our worldly life, if you break the law, you will have consequences. But if you engage in, for example, maybe you broke the traffic law, and you are going to be fined, I don't know, 200, 100, or they give you a fine, So that is consequences of your actions. Okay, but by engaging in community, what do you call service, then you might not get the fine the 200. You don't have to pay it. Maybe it will not be in record. The consequences that you are going to have change because of your certain actions. Serving in community, for example, that change the consequences that otherwise you are going to have another consequence. Do you get it? So similarly, that is what the purification does. By engaging certain, there is certain consequences. But through purification, you change, and then the consequences you might not have to experience. The consequences you are going to experience, or you might experience less, lighter, so those things. It will come, I think it will, this will come also later. So yeah, we're talking about and I don't think we have a problem with the natural law of cause in the plant, do we? I think we have no, we see, even just talk about global warming is a law of cause and effect. Due to certain change in, conditions, there's more global, is more and more warming, And as it warms, it has another consequences, On the other hand, when we change the condition, then maybe we can stop from warming too much. And then that also can change the consequences of that as well, And so we have, so there is that general law of cause and effect, okay? So that law of cause and effect is not only permitted within the external plant, it is also within the all living beings. All living beings, so within the general, that law of cause and effect, then there is another cause or condition that involve, that is sentient beings, intentions, motivations. Okay, so within that law of cause and effect, then sentient beings, intention, motivation get involved. And as a result of that, within that law of cause and effect, then you have different experiences due to good motivation, good intentions, good mind, and you engage in certain actions, then you have a pleasant experience, positive experience, happy experience. On the other hand, within that law of cause and effect, there is involved of sentient beings, intention, motivation, bad intention, motivations, negative minds. And through that, we engage certain actions, and as a consequences, then we experience unpleasant experience, painful experience. So all our experience, positive, negative, neutral experience, whatever those experience, they are result of particular causes. Positive cause and condition produce positive result experiences. Negative cause and conditions produce unpleasant experiences. Neutral cause and conditions give rise to neutral state of experience. I think it is important to us to understand, because a lot of time when you read scriptures, mostly it describes black and white, negative and karma, positive karma, but actually there's neutral karma as well. We have three different kinds of experience in general, if we generalize them. Unpleasant experience, pleasant experience, and neutral experience. Don't we have? It's not always either pleasant or unpleasant experience. Sometimes we have just a neutral experience. It's not neither pleasant, neither is unpleasant. Neither is happiness, neither is a suffering. It's but just a neutral. Just as we have three of those experiences, the cause of those three experiences have three causes. So positive actions lead to the positive, pleasant experience. Negative actions in the mind lead to the unpleasant experience, painful experience. And neutral state of mind lead to when your mind is neither negative or neither positive and neutral, then that lead to neutral experiences. Okay, so I think sometimes it is helpful to that understanding. Sometimes we think unless it's virtuous, everything is non-virtuous or negative, and feel like helpless. Do you get it? Hopeless and helpless. Seems like we are doomed, isn't it? Feel like we are doomed. We have no hope. But I think understanding there's a neutral, and a lot of time is a neutral karma. Not every actions that is not virtuous doesn't have to be non-virtuous. Are we clear on that? Because sometimes I hear students becoming very desperate and hopeless because they hear about teachings and they misunderstand. If it's not virtuous, then it's always non-virtuous, and so then it feels like there's no end. But so anyway, so we talk about a little bit of the karma, and there can be explanations of karma, within, kind of within lifetimes, within one lifetime. But I think that is not the full, complete understanding of karma. It's very limited understanding of karma. If you try to explain just within one lifetime, I think there are a lot of unanswered questions. Okay. On one hand, you say that every action has consequences. But if you have to explain that within just one lifetime, if you don't consider many lifetimes, then there are so many other unanswered questions. Someone who killed someone who died at similar together, that person have no consequences of that actions, because that is end of this life and there's no future life to experience consequences of that actions. That action didn't have consequences, or another children born with lot of challenges, difficulties, sufferings, again, why do they experience that? They have done nothing in this life. They have done nothing bad in this life. They are just simple innocence. Not even have bad thoughts, not hurt anyone. Why they do it? Why they experience that? So then all these cautions, then there's more caution than the answer if you try to explain karma just within the one lifetime. If you don't take many consideration many lifetime, then there's much more caution than actually answer. But if you take from many lifetime consideration, understanding of karma for many lifetime, then And if we don't take karma into considerations, it's very hard to explain so many things. Very hard to explain so many things. We cannot explain everything just only from the external condition. There is external conditions, but there is also internal conditions, the karmic conditions coming together. Even in this time, pandemic times with this COVID and everything, you hear so many stories, and I've personally heard so many stories, even in Nepal and other parts, partners, families, one has COVID, but they didn't know they had COVID. They sleep together, they eat together, they spend in the same house, everything, but the other person didn't get COVID, even though they are exposed to them. Not just for 1 hour, whole day, many days. They ate together, they sleep together, and somehow the other person. And then someone else just came to see and spoke for a couple of minutes, hours, and they were exposed. If you only explain from the external conditions, it's very hard to why, and same things, there are people who have underlying conditions in terms of age, very old, and they are exposed to COVID. They had COVID, but they survive. The chances of them surviving is very small for those vulnerable peoples, but nothing happened. And then there are others who seems just healthy, not in the vulnerable category, and then they have this COVID and they take their life, And so there is external condition, but also there is something more than that too. There is also internal conditions, that also play a role, even in the monastery, when we have in Kopan monastery, when there many monks were exposed to COVID, the worst case was the youngest. He was 16, 17. He had no other issues, and the doctor thought he will not survive. He went like this, and of course, there were a few, who were hospitalized, and his case was the worst, day to day, his case went very bad. He was on ventilator, and the doctor thought that he was going to die in a couple of days, but he came out with it. Doctor was very kind of shocked. He went like this and he came like this, He went like that and they thought he will not make it, but then he started to recover very fast, quickly. He recovered, and then there was another monk who was more stable, but who was in the hospital a long time. And of course there are others, who are not as serious as them, but and I think even my uncle, who was 88, and he was going through chemo at that time, and in the process of going to chemo, he got from his doctor. He didn't know that at the very beginning, but later the doctor found he has COVID, and my uncle got COVID through that. So he is one of those very vulnerable kind of people, but he came out of it, and there are other people who couldn't come out of it, and in terms of external conditions, he was much more vulnerable than others who didn't have that kind of vulnerable conditions, but they lost their life, even within my relative, so the more I reflect, contemplate why, if we just take the external conditions, then it should be the different result among those two things, if you just take the external conditions part, and so then it's very hard to explain why. But there is external condition and there is internal condition from karmic point of view, then I think, at least in my mind, I might be delusional, but in my mind, it kind of answers. It kind of gives some answer to that why, so, and I'm giving that example because it's kind of more kind of recent in this that's happening now. But I think you look in your life, in so many different ways, and that is how it is, Otherwise, random. Why does something happen randomly and why some not always randomly? There's always that conflict. If you don't take from a karmic point of view, then it happened randomly, or coincident, or lucky, unlucky. We can talk about all these different terms. Or he was lucky, he was not lucky. He was lucky, he was unlucky. Or it was just a random. But if it is random, why? It cannot be random all the time. Why it cannot be random all the time? Why only is random sometime and why other times it has to be certain cause and conditions? What makes someone lucky and someone unlucky? What makes someone lucky and someone unlucky? There must be some cause and condition to make someone lucky and unlucky. When we reflect all of that, then, the understanding, the concept of the karma, I think, answers many of those questions. And, without that understanding, then, never ending kind of, there's no answer to all of that, so much. So anyway, contemplating karma, when we try to meditate and contemplate karma, then, we try to contemplate on karma indefinite, and the karma can be increased, multiplied, therefore we have to be more cautious and careful not to create even the smallest negative karma, whereas trying to engage in even a small virtuous karma, we try to engage in as much as possible, and if you have not engaged into the cause and conditions, you will not experience the result, so therefore whatever experience we experience, even though there might be contributions of external factors, but the main cause is our own previous karma, and thereby taking responsibility of ourselves instead of blaming everything outside. So when we have better understanding karma, we stop blaming others less. We take more responsibility ourselves and trying to change our behavior, our action, our mind, because that is the principal cause for that. We are not kind of denying there is no external condition that play roles, okay? We are not denying or rejecting the contributions of other external factors. There is external factors, but also there is main factors, internal factors, karma. Internal and external factors come together, then it creates such particular experience, particular result. So we have to take consideration in both external factors and internal factors. So therefore, from that point of view, we learn not to blame everything outside. We also learn to take some responsibility. And then, actions, if we have created karma actions, then there will be always consequences unless you do something to change it. If you don't engage in a certain practice in terms of negative karma, certain practice, purification to change it. In terms of virtuous karma, if it isn't being destroyed by anger and other negative emotions, then one will experience the consequences. It's only a matter of time when that consequence, we might experience the consequence of that, in this life, immediately, later, at the end of our life, or in the future, but there will be consequences. So through that, then being aware, recognizing that, then we'll try to avert, restrain from creating any kind of harmful negative karma as much as possible. Even it seems very insignificant, small, we'll try to restrain, refrain, and abandon from doing that. And in terms of positive karma, even it seems very small, insignificant, we try to engage whenever we get any opportunity to engage into that. So through that, then that can, and the more stronger understanding, the more stronger your understanding of karma, the stronger your practice of abandoning non-virtuous action and engage in the virtuous actions. The more stronger your practice, you have more stronger practice of that. And understanding karma has helped a lot of individuals to practitioners to deal with a lot of challenge and difficulty they went in their life. Many of the Tibetans who were in prisons, who lost everything, became refugees. Everyone in Tibet has lost someone in their life. Hardly there isn't anyone who hasn't lost, whether it's a close or distant relative, friends, but many of those practitioners, when either in prisons or when they came out of prisons, they didn't have so much of, they didn't end up becoming so much bitter and so much angry and so much towards the Chinese government or towards those people, officials who kind of imprisoned them, killed someone, took everything that belonged, who made them refugees, all of that, One of the practice, of course, different practice that could have different practice and many different practice. One of the practice that many of those practitioners described was through the understanding of karma. They took some responsibility for their experiences. They didn't completely blame everything to them. They think this is our karma. We must have done something bad in the past for us to experience this in this life. So it is part of purifications, something positive, something good. By purifying all the negative karma that we have been carrying, now we don't have to deal with that. And through that kind of understanding, through that kind of acceptance, it has relieved them of a lot of those negative feelings that didn't turn them to become so bitter and angry and all of that, and that can help for practitioners. Having that kind of understanding did help them a lot. Otherwise, they can become very bitter and very angry and very upset and can become their life very, very miserable with that. So anyway, so yeah, so that is all today. Any questions, comments, cautions? Anything to share? Or anyone, those who are on the Zoom, if you have, you can also send chat, or you can raise your hand as well. Yes, please.
I thought that Stella's question was really interesting about, there's the law of cause and effect, but is there a law of purification?
Mm-hmm.
And but I appreciated your explanation about that we do see we see purification in other ways all the time, and so that helps to have a belief in purification practices.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise it's sort of, who made this up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Who made this up that we can get out of jail free? Or,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And I think, for example, you planted certain, whatever plant you planted, and then there's going to be hell that can destroy everything. The consequences of that hell, this law of cause and effect, that when you have that such big hell, it will destroy all these small plants that you have planted. That's how it is naturally, But if you take a certain actions to protect that from the hell, you can save that. And that's the purifications, depending on how much you are able to protect. You might be able to protect completely from kind of being destroyed, damaged at all, or according to how much you are able to do. It might damage, but not fully, some damage. So all this depending on the actions you take. If you don't do that, then the consequences will be, it will destroy everything. But by taking certain actions, then you are able to change the result, the consequences that could have other way turned differently. And so that is where the purification comes. If we don't do the purification, there is going to be a certain result. But by through purification, taking that action, you have changed the result. Yeah.
Actually, I'm thinking about the Ukrainians. Because I see that a lot of them are very, very bitter about what's happening. And I mean, so even though you can't really understand it, that bitterness does not really help anything, you know, but of course, you know, it's hard to tell them that, you know. because
Absolutely.
They're seeing their children killed in their homes and towns
Yeah.
decimated and.
Yeah, it is hard to tell anyone, you know, that they can't be bitter, they can't be upset in such situation. Neither we can say that is their karma. It will be, you know, the way we understand, the way we try to apply karma is more to ourselves. When something happened to us, we try to look from a karmic point of view. It's not asked to say this is your karma. That is not the best. Just meant to make it, think it, or to say it to someone. But when it comes to our life, we try to see his karmic point of view and trying to take certain responsibility and not blame completely others and feel bitter and angry and that. We try to apply when it comes to ourselves. But even it might be reality of everything experiencing karma, but it can be harmful, hurtful, even is a reality to say someone like that, you know. So those are something we have to be more careful and more what I call more mindful and careful. And that is one of the I have mentioned many times, and one of the thing I like about Buddha's approach is not about right and wrong. Most time is not about right and wrong, truth or not truth. Of course, he also discussed about that, but mostly what is most beneficial to that person? Is it helpful or harmful? By saying the truth is going to harm others, better not say the truth. Do you get it? If it helps the other person, then it's better to say the truth. But it is not going to help other persons, but it is going to make them more harmful. It harm more them than even it's the truth. You cannot say that because it's harming them. And that is the that we have to be more aware of that. Sometimes we get caught up in what is truth and not truth and completely neglect whether it is beneficial, helpful or not to the others or not. And so that will be same with the concept and idea of karma, you know. It might not be so beneficial when someone experiences suffering to say it's their karma, it's your karma, you know. Yeah.
I think Sergio has a question.
Yes, please.
Geshe Sherab. So I'm thinking two things. One is that sometimes we do not have the vision to know when something truth is helpful or harmful. And I guess we have to be, I don't know, trusting or conservative. I'm not sure. What about that?
Yes, that is why we need to be more enlightened quickly.
Yeah.
When you are not unenlightened, even with the best intention, sometimes we don't know whether what we are trying to do, even with the best intention, whether it's going to help someone or whether it's going to harm someone. Even sometimes with the best intention, we try to help, but it it kind of have the different effect. And because we don't have the skillful means, the wisdom to see what is most beneficial in that moment or that. And so we have to use our own wisdom as much as we can to make that kind of judgment, trying to read and see the conditions and the other persons with more mindfulness, being more aware of how they are feeling, what they are feeling, how they are thinking, and all of that. And with our limited kind of unenlightened mind and whatever, and we can only act basis on that unenlightened mind at this point, with the best intentions. And sometimes best might be not to say anything, sometimes best might be to say something, or sometimes it might be the best is not to say anything, so we try to understand and we try to do the best ourselves. But the best that is why we need to get enlightened as quickly. So yeah. So
And
the other one.
Yes, the other thing was, it seems like if we can, maybe it's good to not even be, how sometimes we think, oh, well, that's their karma. But that's not even a good thought, is it? That's not a thought that we should entertain, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, I think, I guess, again, it depends on individuals. For certain practitioner, if you remind them is their karma, they might be able to, someone who's have belief in karma, who have a strong practice with karma, and in that moment, they lost their mind, they were not aware of, able to think that way, and then someone mindfully, kindly, skillfully remind them, and then they just catch up their mind, yeah, I know, it's my karma. And so then they are able to work with their mind from that perspective. So again, it depends on individual, with the other persons, and culturally, and in Tibetan cultures, because everyone kind of have that belief and very strong part of that, they wouldn't have a hesitation to say about that. But I think in certain culture, when you don't have that kind of strong background, that to say that can be harmful instead of being helpful. So I think, it depends on individuals, to say about that and to entertain our mind to think that way or not, all of that, it depends. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
John, I think you told me you had the profound questions that you wanted to ask.
You've been crystal clear. So no, thank you.
I thought you were going to ask question. I said, you can ask when we have teachings. Okay, we can do the dedications.
Okay, I'll read our dedication list, and if anybody has names to add, just speak up. Oh, just correct. Brandy Davis.
Yeah, it's
Got her.
not that.
It's not that.
But probably somebody in the world.
Oh,
named
Jeff.
Jeff is right back.
Seth is not right. Okay. All right. Okay. And of course, we dedicate the merit from being here for all sentient beings, but we'll read a list specifically for those who are in our sphere of influence. Under obstacles, we have Jana, Jenny, Jeremiah Rael, and the boys who killed Shirley Reyes.
Mary Jo.
Pardon?
Mary Jo.
I'm Lyra.
Okay, it's for obstacles or illness? Both, okay. Okay, under illness, Clea Scherer, Sujata, Lisa C., John Bailey, Bodie the dog, Kelly, Raquel, Walter R., Rob, Sharon, Jim B., Rolf, Jane B., and Lara.
And Leonard and Thomas. And Mita,
Leonard,
And Thomas.
Leonard, and I've forgotten his last name, and Thomas G, and a dog named Mita.
Nika the dog.
Yes.
Okay, and those who have died in the last 49 days, we have Queen Elizabeth II. We have Frankie, the beloved dog, Shirley Reyes, Jeff, and Brandy Davis.
Yeah, and so then we can keep every other sentient beings who are, you know, a lot of things that are going in the Russia, Ukraine's, in Iran, all, you know, everywhere in the other part of the world who have died, who are experiencing a lot of suffering and pain. So we can keep all of them, everyone, in our prayer, dedications.
We'll do the first two dedication prayers on page 235. We'll do them in Tibetan.
Lama Sanke Gyurgyurne Doa Chinyam Malupa Sala Verpajo Chanchu Semcho Rinpoche Ma Ke Panam Ke Gyurche Ke Wanyam Pa Me Payam Kong Le Kondu Ke Washu.
On page 244, we'll do the new prayer for His Holiness Dalai Lama that's under the big clip. And then we'll do Lama Zumba Rinpoche's prayer as well in Tibetan. Jig 10.
Kande Pende Malupa Kangle Chungwe Sambe Yishino Katen Tsume Tenjin Jatso La Sowa Deso Tuje Lundu Sho Jangan Yahweh Tenzin Jompewe Kunso Toboze Chosun Kuele Montutu Pa La So Duje Gundu Shapten Sho.
And we'll do the prayer for Geshe Sherab, which is under the paperclip as well. Beloved teacher, leading your students towards wisdom and compassion, explaining through exacting discernment the steps of the graduated path. You are the unequaled guide. Please live a long and stable life. And our last prayer will be on page 282. And that's for Osohita Lama Yeshu's reincarnation, the first paragraph in English. Venerable One, to you whose kindness exceeds that of all the conquerors,
for those who wander in far places, especially the West,
mindful of your loving concern for us, and intentionally descend again into the family of our distant land. We make this request. Oh, Lama, please, please, dear Lama.
May our venerable Lama's lives be firm, their right divine action spread in the 10 directions, and the torch of Losang's teachings, dispelling the darkness of the 3 worlds beings, always remain. In all future lives, may we never be parted from the perfect Lamas and pure ways of the Dharma. May we gain every experience of the path and stages, and quickly attain the stage of older diamond knowledge.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you. Thank you.